We hoped that you would be a bit further along in your investigations by now, Mr. Spencer. Have you even informed the police of these thefts?
I did so on Wednesday.
What? Just 2 days ago?
Yes?
Just as I thought. It seems we engines will have to take matters into our own buffers.
I see. What exactly do you plan to do?
Take action, which is a bit more than what you've been doing.
Before Spencer could reply, Gordon departed. As he got his train underway, Gordon was still seething.
Fancy waiting to report it to the police. These are thefts we're talking about. People have been breaking into our vans.
I understand you're upset, Gordon.
It's not just me, driver. We're all worried. No one's going to send their goods by train if they think they'll get stolen.
I take your point, old boy, but how exactly do you plan to take things into your own buffers?
We're going to, we engines have helped the police before.
A few moments later, Gordon reached Elsbridge. He spotted Percy shunting in the yard.
Like Percy did a few years ago, driver.
What did I do a few years ago, Gordon?
I was talking about that time you helped catch that hit-and-run driver who knocked over Miss Hat. How did you do that?
I was just in the right place at the right time, really.
Oh, was that all?
Yeah, I was just lucky. Why do you ask?
Well, we were discussing these package thefts in the sheds last night, and I had a few words with Mr. Spencer this morning. To be honest, I think I may have put my wheel in it.
What did you tell him, Gordon?
Asked Peter, from where he was waiting with the train. Gordon recounted his conversation with Norman Spencer.
I see. What sort of action did you have in mind?
To be honest, I don't really know.
That's why you wanted to know about the hit and run?
Yes, I thought you might have done some sort of Sherlock Holmes thing.
It may not be that complicated, Gordon. All we really need to do is put the police in the right place at the right time.
What do you mean, Peter?
I've had a bit of an idea. There's just one or two things about it I need to figure out.
I can see putting the police in a place, but how do you get the thieves there?
That's one of the things I need to figure out.
Well, I must be off. Good luck with it, Peter.
So, are you going to try and lure the thieves to a van then? I mean, that is where they've been stealing from.
That is the idea, Percy. It's just a question of how.
A few minutes later, as Peter headed out onto the main line, he was still considering the situation. Percy had put his buffer on the problem. They would need to lure the thieves to a specific van, otherwise they'd need to have police in all of the Northwest Package Express vans across the railway. That would take a lot of policemen, and Peter was fairly sure that the Sudrian police wouldn't be able to spare that many. It would also need cooperation from Norman Spencer and the Northwest Package Express. Given that it may be an inside job, that could possibly jeopardize the operation. When Peter reached Tidmouth, he stopped near where Toby was resting in the sheds.
Morning, Peter. You look like you've got something on your mind.
I was thinking about these packages being stolen from Mr. Spencer's company.
Unfortunate business indeed. I hope it gets stopped soon.
Indeed.
Peter said, and he recounted his earlier conversation with Gordon and Percy.
I was thinking about it on my way down, and I've realised that the only way to get this to work would be to work with Mr. Spencer, and only Mr. Spencer. Now I recall hearing something about you, Thomas and Percy saying he's changed his ways.
That's right. He demonstrated that when he trialled the Northwest Package Express service on our branch line. He had an experience in Copenhagen that made him rethink his attitude towards us engines. He's a lot more willing to listen to us now.
Peter considered Toby's words. During his time on the Northwest Railway, he'd learned that the tram engine was a good judge of character.
Thank you, Toby.
You're welcome, Peter.
Driver, could I ask you to send an email?
To Norman Spencer?
Yes, could you ask him to meet me? I'd like to propose a plan to stop these thefts.
A few hours later, Peter was picking up a fast goods train at the container yard. He'd been discussing the thefts with Iris.
I can't see why they couldn't just use containers to transport these packages. I mean, the containers are all sealed up until they reach their destination.
That's true, but what would you call the destination for the containers? These couriers do pick up and deliver door to door.
They could just seal them up when they put them onto the trains.
I'm afraid that wouldn't be flexible enough, Iris. We have packages coming from and going to all sorts of destinations. Grouping them into containers would only cause inefficiency.
Inefficiency? Containers are efficient.
Only when you've got at least a full container's worth of items to send.
Oh, I suppose you've got a point.
Spencer walked over to Peter.
You wanted to see me?
I wanted to talk to you about ending these thefts from your vans on our railway.
I understand you engines are rather concerned about that. Gordon made that quite clear earlier.
I'm sure he did, Mr. Spencer. Now, I've had a little idea about how this could be done.
Peter said, and he quickly outlined his plan.
The problem will be tricking the robbers into robbing the van with the police in it.
Indeed. But I may be able to help with that. You see, Peter, I've been putting together a plan of my own. It was meant to flush out the inside person in the Northwest Package Express, but I think we can get 2 birds with 1 stone here.
Oh? What did you have in mind?
It's called a honeypot.
Spencer began. He gave Peter an overview of his plan and how it could work with the goods engine's idea.
I like the sound of that, Mr. Spencer.
It'll need cooperation from you engines, of course. Who would you suggest for it?
I'd say Duck on the Little Western, Eric on the Kirk Ronan branch, and one of them Class 87 electrics on the Peel Godred line. Those 3 branches are quiet enough to encourage the thieves to try for it.
Thank you, Peter. Shall we do it tonight?
If you're able to arrange it, Mr. Spencer, I'll tell Duck, Sean and Eric. I don't intend any offence, but they may be a bit more willing to listen to me.
I take your point, Peter.
With that, Peter and Spencer went their separate ways to make arrangements. Fortunately, Duck was taking on passengers at Tidmouth when Peter arrived. The heavy goods engine took the chance to explain the plan. At Kildane he found Sean, who was happy to help out. He was able to talk to Eric at Kelsthorpe Road too, as the prairie tank had just arrived.
That's all sorted then, driver. We'll have to let Mr. Spencer know.
I'll email him once we reach Barrow. Later that night, 3 trains set out along 3 different branch lines. Each engine pulled their train carefully, keeping a lookout for anything amiss. Hopefully, there would be a robbery tonight. They were ready for it this time. Aboard each train, in the middle van, waited 4 policemen. On the Kirk Ronan branch, Eric had just left Rolf's castle. He'd shunted the middle van there. The police sergeant aboard it had asked him to, so it could act as bait. Eric and his driver had been happy to oblige. To tell the truth, Eric was finding the whole thing rather exciting. But as he was turned for his trip back, Eric couldn't help feeling rather disappointed.
That was rather an eventful, driver.
As he approached Rolf's castle, Eric spotted movement by the goods siding.
What's that? Look up ahead, driver.
As they approached the siding, the scene became clear. A blue van was creeping up next to the package van Eric had shunted earlier.
Driver, it's the thieves!
Shh, Eric. We don't want to spook them. But it was already too late. Voices carry on cold nights, and Eric's had. Everything seemed to happen at once. The blue van took off. The door of the package van flew open and the police inside jumped out. Eric's whistle blasted out, but they paid him no heed.
Quickly, driver! We can get and stop at the crossing!
It's worth a try, replied the driver. He threw open the tank engine's regulator, and Eric surged forward.
There he is, driver! Hey, you, stop!
Eric's appearance caught the van's driver off guard. That moment was all it took. the driver distracted and braking too late. The van skidded across the ice and into the opposite bank.
Police! They went into the river!
Thank you, Eric. That's some good work. We'll take it from here. While the police arrested the thieves, Eric started heading back towards Rolf's castle. He did have to pick up that van, after all. 'Twas Christmas Eve the next morning, and extra trains had been laid on. Around 7 o'clock, Gordon was waiting to leave with one such train.
Hello, Thomas. Merry Christmas.
Merry Christmas, Gordon. Did you hear we've been given a present of sorts?
A present?
The big engine had no idea what Thomas was talking about, but it must have been good, judging by the tank engine's mood.
Have you seen this morning's papers?
The newspapers?
That's what I said, Gordon. Some of us do still read them, even in this day and age.
Well, some of us have jobs to do.
I was only teasing, Gordon.
That's enough, you two.
Both engines looked over to see the Fat Controller holding a newspaper.
Last night, 3 people were arrested in relation to the recent thefts of the Northwest Package Express shipments. In a statement made this morning, the company's director, Norman Spencer, said they would like to put it on record that this would not have been possible without the cooperation of the engines and personnel of the Northwest Railway. Credit must go to engines number 15, Peter, and number 12, Eric, for their role in ending these thefts.
So Peter's plan did work then?
Indeed. It seems the newspapers got it right this time.
I see. May I ask, how did you get the thieves to rob the van where the police were? Peter did say he had to work that out.
I knew that someone inside my company was telling the thieves where the valuable shipments were. iPads, jewelry, that sort of thing. Just after we spoke yesterday, I was able to narrow it down to 3 people. With Peter's help, I enlisted Duck, Sean, and Eric to help out.
I think I see where you're going with this. You told each suspect a valuable shipment would be on a different branch line, then waited to see where they'd strike?
Exactly, Thomas. My deputy director of logistical operations is now in police custody, and I have a job opening to advertise come the new year.
Thomas and Gordon exchanged a look.
I wasn't sure if you'd heard, Gordon. Given our conversation yesterday, I thought you'd like to know.
Thank you. Oh, and Merry Christmas, sir.
Merry Christmas to you too,
Spencer replied, as Gordon got his train underway. As Spencer watched Gordon leave, he realized something. That was the first time that any of the Sudrian engines had called him Sir.